Hi, everybody. I hope everyone can hear me okay. I'm going to give it a minute or two just to make sure that everybody's managed to get in okay. Just a couple of housekeeping bits before we begin. There's not going to be a Q&A in today's session. Hopefully, all of your questions will be answered as we go through the session, but feel free to get in touch with the support team afterwards if you do have any further questions. You can get in touch with us in all the usual ways, whether that's on live chat or by giving us a ring or by dropping us an email. We also have a very thorough how-to guide that I will show you during the session and will link in the follow-up email, which you can refer to just in case your questions are going to be answered in there. I think we're probably okay to go ahead. Thank you for joining me today in this webinar on collections in CloudMT. My name is Catherine, and I'm part of the support and training team here at CitrusLine. This webinar is going to give you an overview of the changes and updates that we've made to the collections feature in CloudMT. These changes have been made with the primary aim of giving you more control over your website and its content, offering you more flexibility in your merchandising and your content management, and allowing you to really curate and inspire your customers' experiences on your website. Some of the main points that we're going to cover today are the new collections summary page, which you can use to really showcase the products and the content that you want to emphasize. We've introduced 3 different types of collection, which I'll walk you through in more detail in a moment, but these new collection types are content only, product only, and product and content combined. We've introduced the option to add collections to landing pages, and also the ability to add an essential items collection to the basket page, or as some of you may refer to it, to the cart page, just before the customer checks out, which is mainly there to create opportunities for you to upsell to your customers and hopefully increase the final basket value. I end my slideshow quickly. I can show you some examples of what I'm talking about. So this is the collection summary page on the Steelworks site, which is a site created by one of our directors, the lovely James Steele, to try and give you an idea of the type of content and what can be done with this new feature to really bring out the best of your products. The URL for this page will be whatever the domain name of your site is, /collections. You can link to this page in your facet navigation, and you can also choose from all of your collections which ones will show on this page. So you can really stylize and curate and edit it to show what you want on this page, as well as having other collections that don't necessarily need to be showcased. There's a feature on this page to tag each of your collections. So your customers can then use those tags to narrow down what it is they want to see, what they want to shop for, what they'd like to read about when it comes to your content-only collections. So, for example, if they're particularly interested in road cycling, you can just click that to see any of your collections that might have something to do with road cycling, or they can search for it by title as well. I mentioned that there are 3 new types of collection, so I'm going to show you some examples of what those might look like from James's fabulous content. And we'll start with content only. We've got a few at the top here entitled Sample Journal Entries, another and yet another and only another. This type of collection is mainly for editorial content, and the world really is your oyster in terms of what you can use these types of collections for. So we've used mainly filler text on this one, but you can combine all sorts of texts and images, different formatting. You can link to different find and filter results. If I come back and show another one, we've got some different layout examples that we can use. For example, this one, we've got some grids that get involved with the different images. You can get videos in there. There's all kinds of things that you might want to use those for. So, for example, you could use your collections effectively as a blog where you could showcase any charity work or community outreach that you might be doing, any educational resources. So, for example, any sort of bike maintenance tips for our cycling retailers, any horse care for our equine retailers, any interviews that you might have done with local outdoor specialists or cycling stars or anything like that. For those of you who have cafes on site, you could use this as a cafe page where you could keep your menu up to date and show what's the seasonal produce is being served this month, for example. And you have complete control over it, and you can change it, update it to your heart's content. You could use it for an event review if you've been to a horse show or anything topical that's in the news at the moment that you might want to weigh in on, say when it comes around to Tour de France time or any other topical sporting discussions. Whatever you can think of, you can create, and you can tailor it to exactly what you think will appeal to your customers. This is in addition to the general pages that you will already have that you can customize and tailor. But there is no limit to how many of these collections you can have. So if you've used up all your current general pages that you would use for workshop, about us, hire, fitting, and schemes, are the standard URLs, you can create as many collections as you would like, and you have complete control over what the URL will be for those, but I'll come on to that in just a minute. We also have product-only collections. That's our second type. So we've always referred to collections at Citrus Lime as ways of grouping products together from different facet results. And that still applies here. So if I find a product-only collection, for example, that are hot right now, as you would expect, showcasing the products that from a few different groups. So we've got different departments, different categories, different brands, and pulling them all together. So you might use this, for example, for any seasonal collections that you might be using. We would always recommend, if you can, to put content on those to really drive those customer experiences forward. But if ever you don't necessarily want to create that full customer experience, you still have the option to create just a product collection. So, for example, I've got another site that we have access to the backend for. I can show you how this all works in CloudMT. And if I go for my men's adult clothing one and I go to, sorry, that's not the one. Here we go, we've got our mountain bike gifts, apologies, where it's just a list of products from various different facets that we've pulled together to create this collection. And finally, if I go back to my main collection summary page again, our third type of collection, which is probably going to be the most popular one, I would say, is the product and content collection, where you can blend together your editorial content with shoppable products. So, for example, our Giant Defy one here, we're looking to spotlight a particular range of products, in this case, Giant Defy bikes, and I can put in various features that I want to pull out and emphasize. I can put links into the different products, and then I have my group of products underneath, and the customer can choose whether or not to show the filters. You could use this for pretty much anything, any seasonal collections like Father's Day or Christmas gifts or summer holidays, whatever it might be. You could choose to focus on, say at the moment, the nights are drawing in, the winter's starting to show its face. For cycle retailers, you might want to focus on staying safe and visible while cycling home from work. You could do a feature on, appropriate reflective gear to wear. But as I say, the world is your oyster. You have so much flexibility and choice with how you want to emphasize these products. So we've seen a few examples here of how it looks on the front end. But now I want to show you how this works in CloudMT. So within your menu in CloudMT, we have a section for content management over here, which has the links to curate your 404 error pages, to do custom styling on the account page and checkout. And here we have the collections, which will take us to this page here. You will find all of your existing collections on this page, and every single one, unless you've gone in and edited it, will be automatically set as product and content, because this is the most neutral option, and it will keep any previous content that you've added, as well as the items that were already assigned to that collection. You can go in and change that if you like, but when you change from a product and content collection to either product only or content only, it will remove the other half of whatever's in there. So if you were going from product and content to product only, it will delete the content. And if you're going to content only, it will remove the products, as you would expect. One other major change that we've made is that previously an item could only belong to up to 6 find and filter collections. But I think a lot of you will be pleased to hear that we've removed that restriction completely. There's now no restriction on how many collections an item can be assigned to. And there's also no limit to the number of items that can be added to a collection. Although you probably wouldn't want to have a collection that contains every single item. That probably wouldn't be very effective, but the option is there. To create a collection, you just use this new collection button up here. I have slightly prepared one earlier in true Blue Peter fashion. I'm looking at Christmas gifts, and you will get a page that will look a lot like this. You need to do this setup section first before you'll be able to get onto your items. It's all fairly straightforward and self-explanatory. At the top here, you can choose the type of collection from product, product and content, or content. At the moment, this is just a simple drop-down menu. We are planning to potentially edit that so that it is 3 clickable buttons instead. So if you're coming back to this video later on, don't be alarmed if the screen looks a little bit different. Still exactly the same function. The name of the collection is particularly important for the URL fragment that it's going to create. Now, you have a name and a title, and those can be completely separate from each other. You'd probably want them to be somehow related, but one of the main reasons that you can have a different title to the name is that because you're creating a URL fragment, you need to make sure that you don't use any existing facets. So anything that's already used as a department, an item group, a brand, a season, and so on. So if you wanted to make a collection that was all clothing, for example, but you already have the clothing department, you would need to add something in here to say all clothing, or all gifts in this case. You do also have the option to change the name. So if you have an old collection that was, say, Christmas Gifts 2024, and you wanted to change it to Christmas Gifts 2025, completely understand you would want to do that. However, you would potentially risk a bit of an impact on your SEO performance. So instead, if you go in and change the name of an existing collection, you get our little yellow warning box here to say that changing a page URL can compromise your SEO performance, and it gives you the option to set up a redirect from the previous URL to the new URL so that you can maintain that good SEO that we're all looking for. I'm going to leave it as Christmas gifts. So for example, if we go back to our Steelworks collections with our Hot Right Now collection, this is the title, it's Hot Right Now, and then if we look up at the URL, the name of this collection in CloudMT and for the purpose of the URL fragment is Hot Cycling Products at Steelworks USA. So you can see there, they're related to each other. There's clearly a link there, but it gives you that flexibility to give it the name that you want without necessarily interfering with your pre-existing facets. The short description is just a short bit of summary text that appears on that main collection summary page. All of these little bits here, some of which is our lovely Latin filler text, and some of which, think of this as your shortcut to the gear you're loving most right now. Let's go with, we're on a Christmas theme. Let's go with make this year magical. Why not? You can also add the main header image here. So all you need to do is click on our little grid of squares, choose from your image gallery. I'm going to go with these nice ladies doing their Christmas shopping. And that will become the image both on these thumbnails on the collection summary page and your main header image here with that nice looking campfire. There's a couple of tick boxes here to control whether or not this collection shows on the main collections page. So you may have collections that you want to only be visible to certain groups of people. For example, if you wanted to create some content just for your VIP customers, or if you wanted to prep some collections in advance, for example, prepping Black Friday or Christmas, but you don't want them to be found on the main page just yet, you want to have them ready to go, you can choose to hide them from the main collections page by just leaving this box unticked. Or you could also do that, for example, if you want to keep that main collections very curated, very sort of blog type content, you could choose to hide any product collections from that main page. You also have the option to show or hide filters. So when you have your Find and Filter results with your list of products, you might want to give the page a bit of a cleaner look and hide the filters, showing them in this case, but there's a few options where, for example, if I scroll down on this one, we can't see any filters. You could bring them in. We've got them hidden at the moment. And then on this one here, I'll come back to this, you may also be interested in a second. This one has no filters at all, probably because there's not much to filter, so why would you need it? But again, you have that flexibility and that choice. Tags, I mentioned earlier on the main collection summary page, where you can add in as many tags as you like to try and help your customers narrow down what it is they want to look for. You can click in the box to choose from ones that you've already created, so I would want Christmas and gifts and so on. And you can create a new one just by typing it in, clicking on the green New Tag button, and then selecting it to tag this particular collection with it. Finally, we can get a bit further down to the actual content. Now, this is fairly self-explanatory. It's the content that's going to appear at the top of your page, above your products. You can pretty much do whatever you like with this. All it takes is a bit of time and thought and possibly a little bit of HTML knowledge. We've got lots of great examples on our Steelworks page here. If I look at our Cannondale one, for example, our grids, we've got our YouTube videos embedded, some emphasis on particular features, presumably not in Latin. And it's very much what you would make of it. I've got one that's not quite Christmas gifts, but that I've worked on. I found it keeping warm this winter that I created. Got my main header image. I can put some text. I can put images in, a bit more explanation, and then my actual products. Once you've filled in all of those parts on the new collection, you can save collection here. I'll come on to these advanced options in a minute, but before we do that, I want to focus on actually assigning the products to my collection. Up towards the top, after you've done the setup and hit save, this Manage Items option will appear. There are two ways that you can add items to a collection. You can do it by selecting various products individually from this mini version of your CloudMT item database, or you can assign facets to show a certain group of products. You have a maximum of 3 different facet result sets, within that, you can assign as many of these facets as are relevant to you. But one thing that's really important to bear in mind is that at the moment you can't combine these two options. So if you start by using facets and then think, oh, well, I want to do men's clothing and women's footwear, and that's fine, but then I'd also quite like to add in this particular bag or this particular hat or these gloves. Once you've set up some facets, if you then go to assign products, as soon as you add an individual product, it will wipe out those facets that you'd previously assigned, and vice versa. If you've been doing individual products and then you change your mind and you want to do facets as well, can't currently combine the two. So the key takeaway with this one is to have a plan in mind of which items or which facets that you're going to want to include in that collection, and you can go from there. If you choose to assign individual products, you can use these column headers, just as you usually would, to filter down these specific items that you're looking for. Go with shoes, and then to add it to the collection, it's as simple as just ticking the "in this collection" box, just like that. You can also add products in bulk using one of our collection wizards. Should we just find under bulk wizards here? So you'd probably use this individual product method to bring together items from lots and lots of different departments or brands or item groups. So for collections like your summer range, get outdoors, again for Christmas shopping, I'll keep coming back to that one, Father's Day, Mother's Day collections, things like that. Assigning facets instead would be more for if you're looking to highlight a particular brand or season or department or some combination of these. So we've just finished the sort of back to school season, but if you wanted to do new kids' coats for going back to school, or for our equine retailers, if you wanted to do a feature on heavyweight horse rugs, as winter's starting to draw in, you could use the item group in your set facets of horse rugs, and then that item group has a browse filter of rug weight, and you could choose heavyweight from those options. You might want to feature a particular brand's new season offerings. So we could choose whichever brand we've got in here. We could pick the 2025 season, for example. In this case, in our training group, we don't have any active products, so we'll probably scrap that one. But that would let you include that entire range. You could prepare for spring, summer 2026, for example. However, if you wanted to only focus on particular items from a range, so for example, I know that the Lemieux bring out new colours every season, so if you wanted to just focus on those new colours rather than their full 2026 range, you might be better off going to assign products, and then you could filter down the options to any items that have the colour of, what is it this year, cranberry, damson and juniper in their description. So you have lots of flexibility with how exactly you want to group together those products. Another thing to consider when assigning facets is that you can bring in items from 3 separate sets of facets. So any other time when you would set a facet, if you were creating facet navigation options or creating a 10% off coupon or making a find and filter star by, you would build your group of products from these facets where everything that you include, where for the product to show up, it has to meet each of those criteria. That is also true here, but you can bring in a second or a third group of products with a different set of conditions. So if I was an outdoor retailer, I might want to feature my top 3 brands for insulated jackets. So I would choose a facet for the department of clothing. I would probably put in jackets for the item group. And then I would have a browse filter for the weatherproofing, for example. So you might have windproof, waterproof, water-resistant, insulated. And then I could choose one brand for this first facet, and then have the same setup but with a different brand for the second and then the third. I said I'd go back to those advanced options, so I'll go back to setup. Right down towards the bottom here, if I expand that heading, we've got a little SEO information section here where you can add a meta description to your collection and you can give it a canonical URL if you feel that would be beneficial for SEO purposes. And we also have a relationship section. So you can create parent and child relationships between your collections. So on my mountain bike gifts, I have my mountain bike gifts collection. And then towards the bottom, I have two other collections that I think people looking at mountain bike gifts may also be interested in. So what I've done is, in this relationship section, I've made that mountain bike gifts collection a parent, and I've assigned it to children just by going View and Manage Child Collections, and just ticking Is Child Collection from the available collections here. Now there are some parameters for this, so rather like with the matrix parent structure that we have for items, a parent collection can have multiple children, but a child collection can't have multiple parents. So you just attach it to one overall parent. And once the collection is a parent, so this one here is the parent collection for one other collection, it cannot then be a child to a different collection. And once a collection is a child, it can't then have children of its own. So you can't sort of daisy chain it along. I mentioned earlier that you can choose to show or hide collections on that main collection page. If you choose to hide a parent collection, the children will still show on the collection summary page unless you go into that individual collection and set it to be hidden. There's a lot of flexibility for things that you might want to be on that curated collection summary page and which ones you might just want to appear down at the bottom here. Next up, we have the option to assign a collection to the top of a landing page. So most of you will probably be quite familiar with the concept of landing pages, but for any who aren't, landing pages are a really good way to balance out a broad set of results whilst not compromising the loading time or performance of your find and filter results pages. So if you have a department that's got more than, in this case, 500 items in it, you can have it so that a landing page is created instead. So rather than having a very large page full of loads and loads of results that your customer's just going to glaze over after the first sort of 20, you can create a landing page, as you would expect, where you can show the top, in this case, 10 of your latest items, so the newest, most recently activated items, and then, again, in this case, 10 of your best deals within that find and filter results set. So I have up here men's clothing, and to here we have our 10 latest items, and then our 10 best deals. But you can add, as I have here, a collection to the top of that. All you would do is you would find your find and filter fragment here. So in this case, we've gone for clothing, male, adult, made it a landing page, and I've put my winter warmers collection on there. You could then take winter warmers off, and when it comes into spring, you could highlight another part of your clothing range, and that will give them sort of the ones that you want to emphasize, maybe your best sellers, maybe the ones that you want to shift, I don't know. But you will also have the option to view all to go directly to that collection. And finally, we have the option to add a collection to the basket page or the cart page, depending on your region. So just before the customer checks out, they're checking what they put in their basket or their cart. They've got their delivery options, their payment options, and so on. And then underneath, you have a collection that you can set up to appear on every single basket page site-wide. I've chosen that winter warmers one again. And it's kept the title of the collection and the first bit of the text. At the moment, this is quite static. It is one collection that shows on every single basket. We do have some exciting plans for the future to make this a lot more dynamic, where it can choose products from that collection that are most closely related to what's already in the basket. We aren't quite there yet. Keep an eye out for that one in the future. To set this up, I need to go back to CloudMT. This time I go into Site Management and all the way down to site-specific options down here. And then a little way down, we've got Cart Page, Essential Items Collection, and the one that I've chosen. The main difference that we have with this one is that most updates to the collections page will take a few minutes to show on the front end, 5-10 minutes give or take, depending on caching. Because this is a site-wide change, this will only pull through after a site restart. So the overnight restart that happens every day will bring this through. Or if it's a particularly urgent change, you could sweet talk the support team into restarting your site. But we only tend to do that for important ones, and we tend to limit it to once a day. So probably best to prep this one in advance so that it just syncs through in your overnight restart. I mentioned that I would show you the very thorough how-to guide that we've written. You can find this in our knowledge base just by searching for collection. I will include it in an email to follow up after this session. But it's got all kinds of details on the different types, the collection summary page, how to set them up, how to manage your items, pretty much anything you can think of regarding collections. And that's about it from me for today. We've made it to just over half an hour. I really hope this session was useful. I will send through a recording of this webinar, and I will put it on our YouTube channel for anyone who couldn't make it. Thank you very much for your time, and I hope you really enjoy this new feature. Thanks, everybody. Take care.